See, when you're the apex predator in any ecosystem, you don't need a whole lot of you for the survival of your species. You know, at Guadalupe, where we go with our white shark to do our white shark research, we've only counted, we're up to about 180 individual animals identified at Guadalupe. In other parts of the world, Australia, maybe they've identified close to 1,000 great whites around Australia. I'm not sure what the number is in South Africa, but I dare say it's probably 1,000 or less. So when you think about great white populations on a global basis, we're talking about a population in the thousands. Not millions, the thousands, right? But when you're the apex predator, that number works, because if there's too many apex predators, what happens to the rest of the food chain? They start to disappear. What the sharks feed on starts to disappear, and you get the rippling effect down the food chain. But imbalances start to occur when you have not enough apex predators as well. Because when you don't have enough apex predators, what they prey on, that population, will start to explode. And then what they feed on will start to decline. And you'll get the rippling effect that way as well. So when you're the apex predator, you don't need a lot of you for the survival of the species. And what really has happened to their demise is because of their biology. Their growth and maturity rates are slow, and their reproductive biology is also low, which means they not only grow slowly, mature late, they give birth to just a few pups, and not always every year. But again, for the apex predator, that reproductive strategy works, and has worked for a very long time, until man came into the picture and decided that sharks was something they were going to target and catch them by the millions. And now all bets are off. Commercial fisheries has led to their demise because sharks cannot reproduce fast enough to keep up with the demands of commercial fisheries. You cannot have a sustainable shark fishery because of that. It's not like the bony fish that lay millions of eggs. And if you don't leave those bony fish alone for a couple of years, they'll bounce back rather nicely. But sharks will not. When they lower their population size down to below a critical threshold, even if you stop catching those sharks, they'll never come back. And an example of that is the oceanic whitetip, because the oceanic whitetip is biologically extinct in the Gulf of Mexico. There may be a few left. And if we don't catch any more in the Gulf of Mexico, they're still not going to come back. Because, you know, even if you had a male and a female in the Gulf of Mexico, what are the chances of that male and that female coming together in the vastness of the Gulf of Mexico? That's what it is to be biologically extinct. There's not enough of you to reproduce for the population to bounce back. And we're seeing that also in the North Atlantic, where the population of scalloped hammerhead sharks in the North Atlantic has been depleted by close to 90% now. And what's happened in the Chesapeake Bay as a result of that? You guys have probably read about it, right? What's happened to the cow-nosed ray population in the Chesapeake Bay? It's exploded. Because there's not enough sharks that usually feed on those rays to keep that population in check. And what do cow-nosed rays like to feed on? Shellfish, scallops. So what do you think has happened to the scallop population there? So now the scallop fishermen are up in arms. There's not enough scallops for them to harvest. So that's why conservation and pointing out the importance of sharks is important. And really it all boils down to this factor here. It's like anything economics, right? Anything to do with economics, it's all about supply and demand. As long as you, and I use that in the generic universal you, as long as you continue to have a demand for a product, guess what? There's going to be people that are going to provide the supply. So now you should start to think about yourself, supply and demand, this is what's happening to our oceans. What can I do to help curtail and reduce that supply and demand? So education is key. So think about your individual impact and how you can change your lifestyle. Now, what did I do? And I'm not getting on my high box to pat myself on the back or anything, but in 2002, which is like 13, 14 years ago now. It was May of 2002, so not quite 14 years, right? In 2002, I made the conscious decision that I would no longer eat any seafood. And I've stuck to that. No shrimp, no swordfish steaks, no cod, nothing. And I'm not suggesting that you need to do that as well, but if you do, you'll be best buddies. But think about simple steps that you can take. Because it all comes back to this: supply and demand.